Welcome to the Head Shepherd Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Ferguson, CEO here at NextGen Agri International, where we help livestock managers get the best out of their stock. Before we get started, thank you to our two fantastic sponsors for continuing to sponsor this podcast. MSD Animal Health is perhaps better known as Cooper's Animal Health in Australia and for their Allflex range across the world, with a comprehensive suite of animal health and management products. Honiger is a one-stop shop for wool harvesting and animal fibre removal. The Honiger team have a deep understanding of livestock agriculture, backed by Swiss engineering and a family business dedicated to manufacturing the best. We are grateful to our sponsors for their support, helping us bring Head Shepherd to you each week. And now it's time to get on with this week's episode. Welcome back to Head Shepherd. Great to have you listening along. This week we welcome Bill Webb from Merinotech onto the show. Before we get into that, just wanted to bring your attention to the article we've just released on the Hub late last week. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. I often get asked about what people should be running or whether you should be running a shedding enterprise or a merino enterprise or a beef enterprise. And the answer is almost always it depends. It depends on lots of things. And so I wrote an article about it. It ends up, I had a crack at writing lots of things. We're starting with A, which I regretted by the end of it, but that's how we started. But yeah, the 10 A's of a livestock business. So anyway, jump on the Hub, have a read, make some comments, and give me your thoughts. It's far from an exhaustive article, but hopefully gets you thinking along those lines. And we mentioned cost of production in there, and we're talking about that a lot at the moment. Just about people getting focused on their business as we're going through some leaner times. And we're welcoming Ken Solly onto the show next week on the 16th onto our live event onto the Hub, and it'll be great to have Ken. A lot of people will know Ken. We've had him on Head Shepherd before. He's been on lots of material we've done before, but he's a wise man when it comes to livestock businesses. So really looking forward to having him live on the Hub on the 16th. Jump on the Hub and register on the events page. Before we get onto the show, I just want to quickly talk about an agri-futures project that we've just started around environmental and sustainable lending. So some of you out there might be accessing loans to put in solar pumps or do something on the farm that has a sustainability focus, and some of you might have worked out that you can actually access loans based on and get different interest rates or better interest rates based on the bank's criteria. So if that is you, we'd love to hear from you too. We're really keen to investigate some case studies and talk about your story. So yeah, if that's you and you're happy to have a chat, we'd love to hear from you. So flick me an email, mark@nextgenagri.com, or even better, Georgia at nextgenagri.com, who's managing that project, Georgia Pugh. So it'd be great to hear from you if that's you. Right, we'll get underway with this week's show. Bill Webb is the chair of Merinotech Western Australia, a group of farmers who came together to start breeding rams over 30 years ago now, and Bill's been the chair of that for a long time, and it keeps that group together. So it's great to have a conversation with Bill Webb from Merinotech Western Australia. Welcome, Bill Webb, to Head Shepherd.
It's good to be here, Mark.
Excellent. Bill, before we're going to focus on Merinotech because you've been heavily involved there for a number of years, but I think before we get into that, we might sort of head down your personal track for a little while. And you've had a couple of different careers, obviously farming being the first one, or the one that I know as your first one, but then you chose to retrain as a psychologist and move into counselling. So it'd be just good to walk through that, I guess, from going onto the farm and then leaving the farm and then the career since.
Well, there were probably two reasons for wanting to do a career change. One was around the succession planning of the farm. So we decided when our son Ben came back, I would do something else, so he didn't have my negativity or things like that impinging on his ability to work out what to do. I felt I'd done as much as I could around improving profitability and productivity, and I didn't know what needed to be done over the next 30 or 40 years, and Ben needed to work that out for himself, which he has done very well. And so we had a good relationship, and the idea was to move out and still be involved, but not being present and influencing his decision-making in one way or another. And I'd had several back operations, so trying to do something that didn't involve physical work and continuing to injure or hurt myself was another reason for doing a career change.
Yeah, right. So you went back so some people you could have easily just get a job in town, but you went back and studied psychology. Was that something you always wanted to do, or something that sort of
No, initially I was trying to do something I didn't have to do study for to earn an income and not have to study. But in the research work, I was looking around trying to work out what to do. I was going to facilitate family meetings for succession planning and conflict resolution, sort of mediation sorts of things. And it soon became obvious that people can handle one problem, one or two problems, but when problems become multiple issues, that's when difficulty occurs. So psychology became a platform or a foundation to work from, to be able to help people work through life events, essentially. And so it became obvious that I did have to do some study, and took me 7 years of full-time study to become registered, and this is my 11th year of registration as a psychologist, and I'm loving the work and enjoy doing it.
Yeah, it's such valuable work, but such a significant career shift. I don't know many farmers that think that they're going to be a psychologist one day, but I guess it reminds me a bit of my father, who could turn his hand to anything. But it's really intriguing, and I think that point on problems stacking up is really important. We can all handle one little setback, but when they multiply, it becomes pretty tough. If we move on to Merinotech, and it'd be good just for those who haven't heard the story of, I guess, sort of from AMS through to where we are today around Merinotech. I guess back when Merinotech formed, what were the group of farmers there trying to achieve, and when they came together?
Well, the AMS was a national, had a national approach, and the commercial growers around here that were participating in AMS, there was a breeding review that recommended a fully pedigree recorded flock, and the commercial growers in the Great Southern of WA wanted sheep that performed in their environment, so performance-bred sheep performing in high rainfall environments. How sheep did in other environments was of no great interest to the members at the time, and so Merinotech was set up as a public unlisted company, and the commercial growers became the shareholders of the company. And the idea was to have a ram breeding group that was responsive to the commercial growers' needs and desires, and following performance-bred principles and population genetic theories. And so that's what we did. The first 2 years of operation was funded by the share capital that we raised, because it took a while to get going. And the rest went on from there, and it was proven that population genetics and performance breeding certainly has the runs on the board, and will continue to do so.
Yeah, for sure. So getting that flock started, it was obviously, and I've done it a couple of times in career, where you have to go out and get some base ewes. So what did that look like? That was contributions from members? Or?
Well, the AMS, and we continued in Merinotech, there was a ewe contribution scheme. So there were ewes being contributed up the scheme, and then rams filtering back down through the scheme. There was the intensively recorded nucleus, then the ram multiplier flocks, and then the commercial growers. So the commercial growers would contribute ewes to the ram breeders, and then the ram breeders would contribute ewes to the intensively recorded nucleus flock. Then the rams would go back down. So in answer to your question, the ewes for the nucleus flock came from the multiplier flocks, which were based on the commercial growers' genetics available at the time.
Yeah, right.
But that ceased. The ewe contribution ceased after about probably 5 years. I can't remember now. Probably the sort of early 1990s, due to disease, drench resistance, foot rot, sheep lice, just as the transmission of diseases was wanting to be minimised. And then the fully pedigree recorded nucleus flock, we're better off having full pedigree recording than ewes coming in with unknown genetic value. And so the ewe contribution ceased, and it just became a closed nucleus flock, essentially.
Yeah, right. So obviously it's evolved over time. What does it look like now? I mean, it's pretty similar structure, I guess, really, hasn't, from that formation with a few changes, but...
Yeah, the structure's still the same. There were, I can't remember how many sheep there were. There were 190 million sheep in Australia when we were setting it up in the early 90s with the flock reduction scheme and one thing and another. there's significantly less sheep in Australia now. I think in West Australia, something like 6 million breeding ewes left. So the sheep numbers in general have reduced dramatically, and so the client base of Merinotech has reduced also. There's still around about 50,000 commercial ewes mated each year, 50 or 60,000. So it's not an insignificant number. The total number of rams sold are between 300 and 400 a year. So it's still not an insignificant number at all, but certainly a lot less than what it was through the heyday of the sheep industry. And so the changes have been made accordingly. The sheep are competing for land use, whether it be carbon farming or cropping or cattle or whatever, trees, grapevines, peanuts. There's competing land use all the way along, so the sheep enterprise has to perform and be profitable, and so being able to alter the selection index so that sheep have a positive contribution to a farming enterprise continues on, and there's more of a focus on meat now, lambing percentage, survival rate, sheep meat eating qualities that change that there's genetic changes in the selection index to accommodate the competing land use and end product markets.
Yeah, and I guess that's what the leadership is what Merinotech has been known for ever since I moved to WA, then moved away. That's always been wanting to be at the forefront. I wonder, like, not many breeding businesses have an overseeing board, and I wonder if you had any reflection on how that has helped, I guess, keep things less reactive to small changes. I know when the micro madness kicked in that you guys stuck to your guns and sort of kept to your breeding objective because you'd set it with a lot of rigour. I guess how much has the board been a part of keeping it on the straight and narrow?
Well, I think the board's job has been to reflect the commercial growers' wishes. And so it has been a moderating effect, as you say, rather than being reactive to what's happening. It's been proactive and responding to trends and changes. So that change does happen, but it's certainly not a knee-jerk response all the time of changing the index annually and going from one thing to another. Things were introduced. First of all, we just started off doing fleece weight, body weight and micron, and then stoker strength came in after that, and then fecal worm egg count. And then the sheep meat eating qualities came along after that. And I think now with the computing technology at Sheep Genetics, there's, I can't remember how many traits are in the selection index, 20, 25 or something like that are measured. A large number of visual traits. And so the selection index is the main means and to the ends, and fine-tuning that was the method of achieving the outcome that was set, rather than trying to crystal ball gaze and predict what might be happening in the future. Was to stick to what works and tweak it as we go along. And I think the board's had a moderating sort of overview of things.
Yeah.
And we have had written policies, quality policy statements and things like that are written down, so we can reflect back on what was written down a year or two ago and see what the current mood and emotions are, whether they are in line with what the current thoughts are. So we can have that reflection, the ability to contemplate or reflect on what's happening.
Yeah, for sure. I guess in my job, we get to see breeding programs all over the place, and I see Merinotech sheep. Well, I'm sitting in the middle of on the road in New Zealand at the moment, not too far away from some Merinotech blood sheep, and I'd hope that the board and the contributors sit back sometimes and kind of think about the contribution that's been made to the industry, not just through obviously those ram sales to Western Australians, but there's a lot of pedigrees in the east and in the far east here in New Zealand that have had a contribution from Merinotech, which is testament to those directions set in the early days. Yeah,
for sure. The genetic footprint of Merinotech is quite reasonable. The volume of semen sales each year is on a national basis is significant. It does form part of the income stream of Merinotech. It's part of the business model. But essentially, the objective of Merinotech is to breed commercial rams for commercial growers to maximise their profitability and productivity, though. So the semen sale certainly enhances that, but the focus is on the commercial growers' profitability and ability to survive financially.
Yeah, and I guess if we think about that profitability, it's obviously all of the members, and with yourself and Ben and John Young, all pretty focused on the economics, and so that cost of production or total product per hectare has been key. And I guess that breeding objective, as you sort of mentioned, has changed over time. Your very early days with chatting to Norm Adams about, I guess we probably didn't have the words, or you didn't have the words back then around whole body energy or what we're talking now, but that was sort of Norm's kind of concept that you incorporated fat and muscle back, I think, early 2000s, which is probably before the lion's share of the industry, if not the first. And that, yeah, but I guess those sort of things have always evolved. And now, yeah, as you say, we've sort of, with the fly striker early on that work as well. So it's an evolving objective to make sure cost of production is kept under control.
The commercial growers of Merinotech in the past have tended to be innovators and early adopters. And so there's always been a close alliance over many years, even before Merinotech was formed, the alliance of the commercial growers wanting to improve the profit, understanding how things are working and how they can improve the profitability of their own farm, were attracted to the Merinotech model, or the Merinotech model was formed from that foundation, I suppose, is what actually happened. You know, the commercial growers have driven it all the way along. Yeah. And so that model continues today with the alliance with Murdoch University, and often the commercial growers' farms are the venues for the research that is taking place. So the research has been done on the farms. Norm was doing research work and the CSIRO were doing research work in Kojonup in the 1950s and 60s on time of lambing and things like that. So the research was often hands-on by the commercial growers' participation in it. The same as your research at Ian Robertson's, the fat and muscle research that you did. It was just involved in that cutting-edge research all the time, and that will continue. I think when I started farming, there was probably 10% of my cohort that did not go farming, and if you didn't go farming, you were seen as a bit of a black sheep. Well, why were you? It was an expectation that you would go farming. Where for Ben's group, I think probably 90% have done other careers, and 10% have opted to go farming. So that smaller group of people who are going into farming now are passionate about it. They're driven to survive and will make changes for a 1 or 2% gain. And so their ability to understand research, participate in research, and apply that technology to their systems is what's making them able to continue farming successfully.
Yeah, if we drill down to that a bit more, I remember moving to Western Australia from the Western District of Victoria, and there was a very dramatic, and maybe it's just the circles you end up mixing in, it often is, but a very dramatic shift in that innovation or interest in innovation and wanting to be better, wanting to be different. Is there, now you've had the opportunity to study psychology and all that you've learnt, do you have any underpinning reasons for that, or it's just is?
I think it's. I do have some theories about it, actually. It's an observation of mine is that there was a lot of government social experiments on settling rural areas of Australia, and essentially they were after the First and Second War. So there were soldier settlement schemes. In WA, there were group settlement schemes through the 1920s, and so there were a lot of people that were put into agriculture who had no real disposition to it and hadn't had a background in it. So it was certainly an effective way to get rural areas settled. And the Department of Agriculture and things like that their job was to help essentially these new farmers be able to farm successfully. And from that, a number of people, part of the distribution curve is that there are some that were able to have a green thumb and make it work, and others fell by the wayside in quite short time. And so there were people who were already involved in agriculture, plus a whole lot of other people entered agriculture. And just through natural attrition, the ones who have managed to survive and expand and cope and so on have had something intuitive in them about farming, and that the ability to detect patterns and things, just observe what's happening around them, and just have a gut feeling as to about what to do, I think. So there's this intuitive ability of farmers to be aware of what's happening and underpin that with research. But whether my ideas have any credibility or not, I have no idea. But certainly there's something innate in people who are farming successfully. And even in farming, there's still that distribution curve of profitable groups and not so profitable farmers. And natural attrition, if someone can't make it work, natural attrition just gets hold of them. And, just need to look at the number of registered merino studs in Australia, the ones who couldn't adapt and adopt, and they're reflecting their commercial growers, their commercial clients' needs. Natural attrition's taken over, and that competing land use has seen that land be used for other methods of production.
Yeah, no, good points. Before we get further into psychology, but the last is what's next for Merinotech. Is there any traits that the board are thinking about? Is there? I guess it's always waiting. It's a wait and see game, see what comes up, because we don't know what's next. But is there anything on the radar that we have that currently isn't in?
Not that I'm aware of, but certainly meat is becoming a major and has been for a number of years, but it's becoming more important. The changing of the live sheep export in West Australia will influence production systems, so a lot of that finishing will have to take place on farms now, or farmers will have the commercial sheep farmers in WA will be selling sheep as store sheep to fattening people who will feedlot and finish. And once people are feedlotting on farm, the requirements, the commercial growers' requirements to maintain profitability will trickle back down as to what sheep do best in feedlot conditions.
Yeah.
You said methane gas earlier on. I think the 2050 things that are in legislation, or not the 2050 is in legislation yet, but complying to legislative requirements will influence what happens. So the greenhouse gases and that sort of thing is that we're participating in research looking at methane production now. It's not in the selection index, but that could well become something that goes in as stock numbers get reduced. We can meet agriculture can meet some of the methane reduction requirements just through reducing sheep numbers. So the profitability, the intense, making the sheep industry more intense could become part of it, which might change the selection index.
Yeah.
So probably things beyond the farm gate might come and become more influential in the selection index for sure.
Yeah, and maybe we should just cover off the development of the selection index. Obviously, Henry and John Young have worked together to there's the original one that was in place since, was it
2005, I think.
5, yeah, and that's sort of been through a process the last couple of years to tweak that, to incorporate a lot of the things. Like obviously, Ian Robertson ran the nucleus for a number of years, for a long time, since inception, and had a lot of those visual traits. But we've now sort of managed to bring them in to the ones that are breeding bees, and bring them into that index as well, so that we haven't just got kind of visual and data. They're kind of all in the same mix, which brings, I think, some power to it. But plus the economics that John Young obviously is the guru of.
Yes, no, the ability, the computing ability of the sheep genetics computer to be able to quantify a lot of what we were doing visually certainly will, and the full pedigree recording will make the selection index a powerful tool. And the ability to change things will I don't know if it'll happen quickly, but be quite influential. So the need to fully understand the implications as to what's happening when we make one change in one area, what's happening what's the consequence in another area, and just being able to measure these things will enable us to fine tune the selection index as we go along. But the previous one that had, I don't know how many measured traits, probably 10.
I think it was 10, yeah.
10, something like that, did work very well. But adding these visual traits and putting them into the selection index will say around ewe productivity. And now when they're culling the ewes, we can have the sheep, the ewes' lifetime productivity coming up, and we've got sheep that are weaning their total mature body weight each year. So a ewe of 60 kilograms is weaning 60 kilograms of lamb each year, or plus 60 kilos. So being able to identify those sheep compared to the ones that just has a twin every second year or something like that. So there's just little things like that with the computing technology and the electronic ear tags are making a big difference to lifetime production.
Yeah, for sure. And big opportunities to take what has been a great breeding program to go even greater. The last question is one we ask in every podcast these days, which gets people thinking, and that is, what is the last thing you changed your mind about?
There's several things to do with that. I suppose one is the selection index, the Merinotech index. We do review and change that from time to time. I'm restoring a British motorbike at present, so I've changed my mind about how we're going to get around the technology and what to do and how to put it back together. But probably having studied psychology now, if I knew when I was 20 what I know now, I think my life might have been done a bit differently. The importance of family is terribly important. Often farms see the farm as the central focus and the goose that laid the golden egg, which means that family work-life balance and family can be compromised. So I think, and I certainly see it in the work I do now as a psychologist, the importance of participation in the upbringing of children, the interaction of the whole family dynamics in relation to a farming production system is just trying to balance things out to make it work. Agriculture has been good to our family, the Webb family, over a large number of generations, and will continue to do so. The social media, pressure of social media and the use of it certainly influencing our the way we operate and family dynamics. But I think at the end of the day, our family is what we have, and we have to treasure and cultivate that importance of that of the family unit, and sometimes I might feel that we're compromising the farm's productivity, but in the long term, I'm sure that it's the reverse. It does. So having a strong family unit and being able to have time off and have everything working does improve the farm profitability and productivity.
Yeah, really important words, and that's why we ask the question, because we always get good answers like that one. And very well said. I think having tried to follow you around for a few days when I've had the pleasure of staying with you, you always, I don't think I've ever seen you walk. It's either running or running or stop. But obviously it would have been a massive change to take that step from what is a very busy, active farmer to go, well, I'm now going to, but to see you and Ben interact now, like it's a great legacy, and it's awesome to see decisions made early rather than sort of let bad things happen and then forced decisions.
Forced to make changes. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and often that can be the case in bad things can happen, which it's just unpleasant, unfortunate. Yeah.
All right, Bill, we'll leave it there and let you get on with. Well, you've started early for the day. You'll get a fair bit done today, but really appreciate your time. And we should mention the Merinotech Open Day and Sale. When's that this year?
The Open Day and Ram Sale are on Friday, the 4th of October, just near Kojonup.
Excellent. All right, Bill, we'll let you get on with your day, and thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for all your help, and it's greatly appreciated.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks again to Heinegger, who are proud world leaders in the manufacturing and supply of professional sheep shearing and clipping equipment. Thank you to MNSD Animal Health and Norflex Livestock Intelligence. They offer an extensive livestock product portfolio focused on animal health management, all backed up by exceptional service. We thank both of these companies for their ongoing support of the Head Shepherd podcast.